Get started. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the fourth in a series of presentations sponsored by Lumos Learning on various aspects of distance and online learning, with the goal of making administrators as fully informed about these issues as possible. So, the goal of our session is to cover a lot of information and also to give you a set of slides that become reference materials that you can use anytime you'd like. And, so far so good, I think, on what we've done. And so we're gonna, plow into this topic today, the role of organizational structure and teacher training. And our goals, again, are to cover the fundamentals of supporting technology, to deal with curriculum issues and strategies, which we've largely covered in previous sessions, talk about the challenges of distance learning, which there are on all of these aspects. There are challenges. Talk about today the importance of organizational structure and make you more aware of the issues and strategies available to you relative to organizational structure. Talk about socio-emotional support issues for everyone in this period, teachers, students, parents, administrators, everyone's dealing with very difficult issues. And to come up with focused solutions for those of you who participate and wish to put your situation forward, that we can talk about some specific strategies that you can use to make your situation better, to improve your school, improve student outcomes, etc. So those of you who have been with us for the previous sessions, this will look familiar. I'll just review it for a second. This is sort of our clock of the whole system. And you sort of sit in the middle here in distance education. And starting up at the top, we have learning systems, LMS, digital learning, digital assessments, professional development programs, and LMS would be like Google Classroom. We have delivery systems like what we're using now, Zoom, other virtual classroom systems, and other classroom management systems. And there are numbers of these. And again, the previous programs on previous slides give you a resource of listing them and telling you how to contact them and explaining, generally where they fit into the system. Instructional and curriculum systems. So this is curriculum management, instructional design tools. This is, for example, like Lumos or iReady. Management systems. So these are school management programs, tell you information about the students, allow you to communicate with all the various groups. And we're going to talk about that today a little bit and how important it is to reach out to all the different stakeholders on a regular basis. And then we talked about cybersecurity, which a lot of people often miss. It's important because when things go south on security issues, chances are the people who are on this webinar are the ones who are going to get blamed for it. So organizational structure is a tool that affects the type of pedagogical approach. It impacts the effectiveness of the organization. So this is a tool for being effective. So the question you should ask as you consider organizational structures is, which one will help me achieve my goals the best? Which one will help me achieve my goals the best? And if you know how different organizational structures have different characteristics, and I think at the end of today's session, you'll know that, you can decide what you want to pick, what you want to choose, how you want to work with it. And let's just talk about managing change a little bit. Managing change, why is this relevant to us? Because as we focus on going from in-person to online, from in-person to hybrid, from hybrid to online. We're constantly managing a process of change, and change happens positively when everyone pulls in the same direction. So there's no question about it. You want everyone, whatever metaphor you want to use, everybody rows in the same direction, makes a huge difference. And organizational structure, as we'll talk about, has a major impact on enabling change. Okay, so factors to consider in setting organizational structure. Obviously, the bigger a school is, the larger the organization you're managing, has a big impact on the organizational structure. At its simplest level, the larger the organization is, the more levels you get to the organization. Also makes it more difficult to manage. And, you know, bureaucracy, which we'll talk about a little bit, is sort of the ultimate example of that. Very large, that you're looking for a lot of control, so you put in all these bureaucratic tools, and then they drive everyone, when they're not working, they drive everyone completely crazy.
Professor Rogoff, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Is there something on the camera? I'm not able to see you well.
Oh, really? Hold on. Let's see. I don't have, it's my, well, that's so odd. I don't know why. It was fine. Let me see. I'll wipe it off.
It's a little bit better now.
Let me change. Maybe the sun has moved in the sky or something like that.
Yep, it's back. It's good now.
There you go. And, you know, seeing my face is the most important part of this whole thing. So that's good. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Otherwise, you get dizzy looking at a you know, bad picture. Okay, so the larger the size, obviously more levels, you know, working up to bureaucracy. Leadership style depends on what kind of style, what kind of goals you have. So if you're somebody who manages a lot through personal connections, through setting examples, through setting a strong culture, you're going to organize your organization in a different way, different structure. The numbers of members in each of these groups, you know, as organizational managers, you know, there's a span of control that's sort of the limit to what people can manage, at which point it just overwhelms our brains. And, you know, a rule of thumb is very difficult to manage more than 7 people directly. You know, indirectly you can manage more, but if you're really going to intensively manage, span of control around 7 is where you need to start looking at creating more levels. Okay, curriculum depends on the curriculum you're using. What are you teaching? How complicated it is? You know, what types of students you have, whether they're self-motivated and participating. The number of programs, again, burdens the organization. The types of programs, the culture that you have or looking to create. Do you have, on the one hand, sort of open, friendly, sort of everyone is, you know, sharing with each other, or do you have more like a military culture? And, you know, finally, and we'll talk about this more in 2 minutes, mission, purpose, and vision that you bring to the organization. So let's take the next 5 minutes, and I'm going to give you the fundamentals of organizational structures. So you're going to get, in the next 5 minutes, an MBA in organizational structure. There are fundamentally 5 types of organization structures: functional, product, geographical, matrix, and hybrid. Here's a functional structure. The structures are defined by the second level. So this is the first level, this is the president, and the second level, how this is organized, is how the term comes to be. So this is by function: research and development, manufacturing, accounting, and marketing. You know, in a school context, you know, this could be IT, it could be classroom management, it should be enrollment management, it could be, you know, logistics. So you could organize it functionally that way. You could organize by product. So a lot of companies do this. So if this is a company example, is that, say, media company would have publishing, could have management systems that it sells, it could have e-commerce capabilities. This is by product, again, the first level down. And then interesting to see, the second level down is by function. So this is a product organization, but the publishing division, the e-commerce division, the management systems division are all functional organizations individually. So you're learning the buzzwords and structure. Geographical structure, I don't think this probably pertains to too many of you, but you know, if you're managing a large district and then you organize by schools and each school has its own geography, you would be in a geographical structure. So here's the president, and then here's the US, Europe, the Pacific, and we can break it down further by geography. And then again, underneath, you could do by function, you could do by product, you could do however you wanted to do. This is a geographical structure. Most organizations are hybrids. They're a combination of different function and product. So here's an example of a company. Here's human resource. This is a function, but right, and corporate finance is a function. Research and development is a function. But then we have international division, that's geography. And then we have this medical, scientific, electrical. These are all products. So this gives you the flexibility to mix and match, to put on this first level beneath you as the CEO, because we're talking about your organization now, where this is to give you the flexibility to do what you want. Let's talk about one other. This is a matrix organization, and actually many schools use this. And I think as I describe it, you'll find this familiar. So a matrix organization means that each person occupies a cross in this matrix where the lines cross. Each person who sits here reports up to a vice president of function and also reports to somebody by product. So this is a dual reporting structure. So this might be for a school as well, right? A teacher might be reporting to their vice principal, but they might also be reporting to somebody regarding curriculum. So matrix organizations are typically used for complex functions, complex organizations that are doing complex, difficult things. NASA is a matrix organization, right? You know, they're creating a space shuttle, they're sending it into space. They need to have people with all kinds of functions, right? You know, they understand weather, they understand physics, they understand building the shuttle, they understand taking care of the astronauts, and then each of them have also, so you need to have these expertise, and then they get assigned to product or to projects. And so I think this is usually seen as high level, complex, expensive organizations, but I don't think it's so far away from what you might be doing in many cases, in which case you have to recognize this dual reporting relationship and the fact that people get assigned to projects or products that are often on a temporary basis. So as they finish one project, they get reassigned to another project. Okay, so now you know everything there is to know about organizational structures. So how do you control within an organization? Well, you know, you have reporting structures, right? So you have who's gonna, these are the lines that tell somebody, well, I report to Sally. I need to go up and report to Sally. I need to have a meeting when something is important. That's a reporting structure, and it runs both ways. Span of control, I mentioned, You have to have a reasonable span of control. If you have 50 people who report to you, you cannot manage them effectively. It's just the nature of the limitations of the human brain. So set a reasonable span of control. Many organizations have saved money by eliminating middle levels, which requires the person above to now have a much larger span of control, which they can't do. And then everyone goes, wow, they eliminated middle management and now the organization doesn't work as well as it used to. So span of control, major means of organizational control. Reporting tools such as reports, culture, very important. You're the leader of this organization. You establish a culture. People see that right away. It translates it translates through the organization almost immediately, becomes very powerful tool. So if you're student oriented, if you're committed to your organization, if you do whatever's required to do to make it successful, people will follow that and you don't even have to talk much about it. They'll see it, they'll feel it, they'll do it too. Management styles, you know, there's two fundamental management styles. One is mechanistic. This is sort of assembly line management. Frederick W. Taylor, you know, from the early 20th century, everything you set it up, it's detailed management, you report on every detail. Organic is much more people, soft skills management, control, and teams. Everything in organizations happens with teams. And you need to build a good team dynamic. You need to explain that you can't achieve your goals unless the people in your team are working together and working with you. So here's what you end up with, right? So here's a, you know, here's an example of a school, and here's information technology, education technology, and network services. This is by function, right? Then we have people who work for them. So this is their team. This is their support team. This is their support team. And now we start seeing the lines begin to get complicated. Well, you know, schools are complex organizations, so not all the lines run up and down. Let me say one fundamental thing in reading organization charts. They are a table that has an x-axis and a y-axis. So I'm sure everyone here knows which one is the x and which is the y. So this one, x going horizontally, is division of responsibility. So this person is doing network services, this person's doing something else. And this, the y-axis, the vertical axis, is power. So this is who has authority over others. So Lindsay has authority over Harry. Harry has authority over number 14, who doesn't even get a name. So, you know, so this is power. This is division of responsibility. And if you think about it that way, these charts become much simpler to understand. Here's another one. You know, now we're starting to introduce this higher level department bureaucracy that, you know, is above everybody. Department of Education, outside the school physically, but now we have school leadership. Then we have responsibilities here, the school managers. These are like, so this is sort of functional organization. Here's the technology people, here's the teaching part, and here's sort of the management systems part of it. And again, people report up, so this is power, and people are broken out sideways. This is functional divisions. Okay, now what happens here when you have a central office that's you know, doing its thing, and here you are at the school level doing your thing? So you have these, now we're sort of getting to a hybrid organization, right? So you know, the school, this is you running the school, you have a guidance counselor, you have an e-learning facilitator, you have an advisor, they're all reporting, you know, up to you. And in the central office, you have these parallel functions. So this guidance counselor is also, there's not a line here, but there could be, that shows they're also connecting to the school counselor, starting to look like a hybrid organization where you have this nexus and people report in two directions. This puts a lot of burden on the person in his job. They're reporting to you, they're reporting to the central office. Takes more time. You know, they're going to be requesting certain things, you're going to be requesting certain things. Just be aware of it. If you're supervising people who have other reporting responsibilities, like a hybrid organization, then, you know, you need to be, what can I say, gentle with them. So you set a vision. When you say things, the vision is the big picture of where you're going. When you set this vision and enunciate it by saying things that I believe in learning without limits, I believe in learning everywhere, ubiquitous learning. I believe that our mission is to equip our next generation. When you start saying things like this, you create a vision, you unify your team. You start the process of getting everyone on the same page. Okay, how do you communicate and who do you communicate with? This now becomes the execution part of this organizational tools, communicating your strategy. So you need to communicate this with your team, with your staff, with your community, and it has to be a harmonized communication plan. And this is a huge burden on you. And here we've speculated that there's a communications director. What's that person's job? That person's job is to make all this happen because you've got 10 other things to do. And it's easy for you to let the community engagement go by the wayside, even temporarily, or not to be communicating as much with your support staff as you should. So now you've got somebody who can help with that. That's their job. If you don't have one of these folks, well, you've got to do all this. And you have to be cognizant. Does everyone know what they need to know to be able to do their job? Just because they're on an organization chart doesn't mean they know what they're actually doing. Let's take a look at some research. Percentage of teachers reporting that they were able to contact all or most of their students and or families. This is during the COVID shutdown, and you can see that elementary schools did the best. White students from white families, white students did better than students of color. Richer did better than poorer. Town and rural, they're all about the same based on level of urbanicity. But you can see big differences here, and none of them approach 100%. None of them approach 100%. So a big gap in what you would like to do with communication with your various student groups and what you actually were able to achieve. Now I'm going to hand it over for a few minutes to the founding genius behind Lumos Learning, Mukunda Krishnaswamy, because Lumos has a tool, a free tool that you can use to deal with some of these issues to improve parent engagement. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mukunda.
You can keep it on, Professor Rogoff. Great. If you could keep sharing for maybe another minute, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So, it's a big problem, and with home becoming the center of learning and getting parents to support you in your kind of distance learning initiatives is a critical success factor. And an important part of getting them to participate is to really find ways to give them answers to their questions or concerns in a timely manner. So for example, a mom might have a question about her child's homework or privacy information, at 7 p.m. And as we saw in the survey data, most teachers find it very difficult to get hold of parents when they call, either to go over the progress or the questions. So let me show you how our communication assistant tool can help you improve the parent and even staff engagement. So let me see if I can present my screen and share my desktop. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So imagine you have a little search button on your school website, like the one that you're seeing now, this little orange button, and that can be made available on every page on your website. And so the benefit of having this is now the parents or other community members visiting your site can start asking questions. So as an example, when can my child have breaks during the at-home learning? And it provides them that immediate response. And one thing that's very typical is people ask the same question in many different ways, right? So for example, another parent may ask the same question about breaks as, is my child allowed to have breaks during a class, right? And the beauty of this tool is that it understands natural language. And so it's able to answer questions even if they're asked in different formats. Now, what's more, let's go ahead and ask a question that is not in the database. So let me ask a question like this, that's from a parent that needs some special guidance. And let's say the person is looking for IEP support. And then they're given a response saying, hey, look, we didn't find you an answer, but you can actually request an answer. So I can put in my email address and request an answer to that question, which sends a message to your communication team. So they can take a look at the question that came in, respond to that through the administrator portal. So I'm going to quickly toggle to that admin part, just kind of give you a sense of what that looks like. So it's just like an email inbox. You're able to see the questions that are here, and you can reply to that parent privately. Now, one thing that makes it very unique is, let's say you think this question is a fairly common question and you want to make it available for everybody in your community, that you can easily do by essentially adding this to your database of questions. So I'm going to quickly do that here. And so let's go ahead, place that question and say, and the answer might be, after your child logs in, you have to go to my profile in the system that we have. And then the question is added. So now the power of this is that the information is now in your repository. So the next person on your website, if they ask a question about IEP, guess what? They're going to find an answer immediately right there. So it's a very simple tool, and the communication assistant allows you to listen to what your community members are saying or asking. You can respond to those questions in a very collaborative manner. so your communication team can participate. And you can build a rich database that gets better over a period of time because you're adding questions constantly. And the good news is you all have already access to this tool through your accounts that you have in the system. So you can certainly start adding questions, experimenting with it. And once you're ready to publish, it's very simply you copy a few lines of code using this embed code that's available here. And if you share it with your website administrator, or you can simply add it to a web page of your choice, then that widget that provides the answers to frequently asked questions is available to all your community members. So that's a quick demo for you on Lumos Communication Assistant. Professor, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Um,
I will stop sharing.
okay. All right, terrific. Thank you, Mukunda. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. Leadership and accountability. These two things are completely wedded together. You can't be an effective leader unless you're going to be held accountable and you're willing to be held accountable. So you set the tone for change and you inspire action. You set the vision. You propagate understanding and empathy across all the departments. This is this way that people learn from you through culture, right? So you propagate this understanding and empathy. If you are an understanding and empathetic person, you show how the pedagogy can be enhanced with technology. You involve the right people in team building, visioning, task force, etc. And you drive collaboration across all of these groups. That's leadership. And it's accountability because there are clear goals and you have a willingness to be held accountable. So what can you expect from everyone? You can expect that every person is going to be a change champion in the line with your vision. They will support change in the way they do their job to support your vision. That you will identify that you expect everyone to identify ways to optimize the learning experience within their own realm. That you will expect that they will define roles, responsibilities, and attributes that make them effective, and that people will be flexible. So irrespective of job titles, people can step up and fill gaps as needed. No better example of this than last spring when so many of us switched to online learning in a couple weeks' time or less. You want people to have the right mindset, which is we're doing the best we can and we're going to do what it takes to win. The ability to execute, this is sort of your job in a sense, is to make sure they've got what they need to be able to do their job. And evaluation should be modified considering the needs. So as the world changes, how evaluations take place changes. So processes and data, increase automation and embed security as you move online. Organizational agreements should be considered and reviewed. Data accessibility, acceptable use policies, and we talked about some of this, last time, needs to be reviewed, updated, and you need to be knowledgeable about it. Higher level information and insights can be stored. And whole issue of how you manage data, which again, we talked about in a previous session, and analyze data to extend initiatives. So as you become a more data-focused manager, you learn from the data and you learn what the smart next moves are. So leadership defines the outcomes. It improves the student experience, it better supports struggling students, it provides this ubiquitous learning environment, which is where we've come on this. It makes it easier for educators to use technology. It makes learning more flexible. It gets everybody, i.e. the community, more involved in the school. which you need because online learning, as we've talked about before, takes more time, takes more effort from teachers than in-class learning, makes it easier for students to connect with faculty, staff, and the community. If this is your goal and you've put the tools in place and the organizational structure supports it, well, then you can make this happen. And ultimately, it personalizes the learning experience, right? It allows for more communication with all of these faculty, staff, community, and students, and it personalizes the learning experience for students. So this is really more of a reference for you going forward that you may be able to take advantage of. I'll just give a brief overview of this. So these are the indicators over here of these goals. So if you want to improve the student experience, can you check these boxes? You know, regular attendance, on-time completion, time spent in learning, fewer complaints from parents and students. To skip down, if you want to create this ubiquitous learning environment, have you looked at the types of devices used? And you know, there are these tools, these software tools that will give you this picture of what tools are being used and how they're being used. When's the time of day when learning interactions happen? So is homework being done at 11:30 at night when it's due the next morning at 8 a.m.? How many students are using devices? And to make it easier for the educators to use, just to skip down here, you know, how many hours are the teachers spent on online instruction and interaction, the type of online resources that they're assigning to their students. So this is the goals for you, and these are how you can check if you're doing the things that could lead to the successful accomplishment of those goals. So here we've taken some guidelines from these three respected sources, Southern Regional Education Board, the now Aurora Institute, and the NEA. And this, I'm not going to read this, but this is a similar sort of thing. So this is from you know, each of these organizations, and these are qualifications, professional development, and credentials, and here are the standards. Again, I say this is a good reference list for you. When you, as a manager, as a principal, as a district superintendent, are working on these issues, go back to this list and look at these standards, and you'll see what you could be doing to achieve positive results. This is about communication interaction. So, you know, for example, if you're looking to improve communication and interaction, these are standards such as knows and understands the need to define the class interaction for both teacher and student, knows and understands the techniques for developing a community among the participants. These are really good, specific ways to train and measure the people in your organization to see that in the best way possible, they're working to achieve this goal. And here's one more of these. So this is technological knowledge, you know, so the NEA says these are the standards, be familiar with online tools, LMS, content management. Yeah, you can go back to your slides from our previous sessions. Pay particular attention to the course enrollment process. Demonstrate the ability to search and use internet sites so that links can be incorporated into course documents, right? So these are very, you know, operationally powerful, specific standards that you can apply in training, managing, and judging people in your organization towards the accomplishment of these goals. Okay, so let's take a look again. This is from the Shanker Institute. This is, do people feel successful teaching students? So this is what you probably already know, been written around written about is that people are not as satisfied with the results they get teaching. This is with among teachers. They're not as satisfied with the results teaching students remotely as they are in person. I don't know that this always has to be this way. We don't have to accept this because on 2 weeks' notice, this is what happened. As people learn the system, as they apply those standards on the previous slides, as they become more knowledgeable, comfortable, as the learning environment online becomes richer and more tools are used, I would expect these numbers will change and this will creep up. Comfortable using technological tools, also from the Schenker Institute, extremely interesting here. What does this say? Basically, the more experienced you are, the longer you've been teaching, the less comfortable you are using technological tools. Now, even here, with people with 35 years of experience, they're still more than 80% comfortable. So it's not, it's not horrible. It's not like this is zero. Don't think this scale is 0 to 100. The scale here is 80 to 95. So, there's more work to be done, older, more experienced students, and I expect that all of you know that. So percentages of teachers indicating current level of need for support from their districts in various levels. So major needs, strategies to keep students engaged and motivated to learn remotely. So this disengagement of students is what drives people crazy. It's clearly what's happened for a lot of different reasons. Some of it is student doesn't have an internet connection. Students' parents are not involved in their education. Student was not really a motivated student to begin with, and now they sort of play the system so that they're not as involved now as they were before. So strategies to keep students engaged and motivated to learn remotely. This is something that teachers could share with each other. The task forces with teachers and with advisors and with administrators to work on specific tools to get this number down is a key issue for happiness with an online system. Other things that are major needs, but not to that level, strategies or resources to address the loss of, hands-on learning, i.e. internships and labs. So, how do you maintain experiential learning in this environment? Well, in some areas, depending on the curriculum, it's a little bit easier than others. But without question, some of this has to go by the wayside in an online environment and gets replaced by other tools. Students creating websites, students doing virtual transactions with each other in a, say, virtual business or trading environment. Students taking over flipped classrooms so that students are more involved in the teaching process. Guidance and tools for assessing students' social and emotional well-being. We're going to talk about more of that later, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, this issue is a significant issue. Tools and resources to enable counselors to support students. So this goes really to the heart of communication tools, socio-emotional learning plan issues. Students feel isolated, they feel disconnected from their friends, they feel disconnected from the teacher. What can you do to mollify that situation, to make it as minimally impactful as possible? Access to high-speed internet from home. It's interesting, you don't have high-speed internet, you're pretty much lost. I don't really know what else to say. We did interviews with principals and district superintendents who tried to maintain connection with their students who didn't have internet connections at home, try to maintain these connections on paper, and very, very difficult, extremely difficult to do. You know, some of them really are heroes to the extent that they were able to make that happen. Opportunities to network and learn from other teachers. So this is where you as a leader can step in and create structures such as Zoom meetings or panels or task forces that operate virtually to allow teachers to interact with each other. So common challenges, summarize this section a little bit for everyone. So common challenges for educators, familiarity and comfort with technology, for you, for your staff, for your teachers, incorporating technology effectively to change teaching and pedagogy. So this goes to the issue of providing people with training, time management, as this situation of hybrid learning and online learning creates more time demands. There's more demand for time management by everyone involved. Grading responsibilities, as many of you know, during the spring shutdown of in-person classes, a lot of grading responsibilities were just abdicated, and you know, schools gave everybody a pass, or they gave all the students whatever their grade had been up to that point. This is something that needs to be revisited now in an environment where you have more time to plan. Student movement and progress monitoring, and we talked about tools that allow you to do this, tech tools that allow you to do this. Communications with parents and students. Again, we talked about that in an earlier session and gave you some examples. You know, this, you know, Lumos assistant that Mukunda demonstrated is a tool for solving that problem, you know, or at least partially solving that problem in a way that takes very little of your, right? Once it's set up, the question just needs to be answered once. And of course, maintaining a strong relationship with your students to motivate them and to support them during this difficult time. So professional development initiatives. So all of this boils down to, like, everyone's got more to learn. Everyone's got more to feel comfortable with. So as a manager, what can you do? You can do these 4 things. You can identify and adopt district-wide technology competencies and performance levels. So in other words, where do you stand now? And then what do you need to add? So identify your strengths, and identify your weaknesses and come up with a strategy for filling those gaps. So identify and implement a comprehensive professional development planning model. So, you know, what do people need to learn? How do you want them to do it? How can you do this in a reasonable period of time? People are not going to sit for hours on end and stare at Zoom screens or watch YouTube videos of how to implement you know, aspects of a Google Classroom. You need to make it efficient. Set and communicate district-wide expectations for the district and the school-based technology training, and develop and implement. So here we're going from goals to implementation, technology-supported delivery systems for professional development. And this is your job as a leader and a manager. Set the goals and then create the tools to achieve them. So enhance professional development to include, so this is not just the curriculum, right? Not just the times tables or grammar. This is, you know, trauma-informed instruction, right? You know, students, teachers, look, 150,000 families have lost someone to COVID. Many, many more have been impacted by it, by people who have been sick, some with enduring problems from it. So many of them have been traumatized by this, and your teachers and administrators need to be cognizant of it and need to put this into their curriculum, into their communication strategies. Team building and collaboration among everybody, we've talked about that. Socio-emotional learning. So this is a subject for this. The team building and collaboration among everyone is to focus on socio-emotional learning in the classroom. Where does it go? How do teachers and administrators also deal with these issues? Hybrid and distance learning we've talked about. Family engagement. This is professional development for teachers. What can they be doing to engage families more, to support families more? And the technology and tools, what can I say? Go back and watch the first two of our symposia that covered this in detail and give you a lot of references to follow. So let me summarize some helpful tips. Helpful tips, say that 6 times fast. Strong ongoing communication from those at the top. Who is this? You. This is your job. Creation of teams to support this, to come up with specific strategies and to make it happen, and to communicate your culture from the top of the organization through it to everybody. Ask teachers what they need. Empathy as a leader. This is ask questions and wait for the answers. What do they need? Not that you can necessarily get them everything, but sometimes you probably can, or you can come up with alternative solutions for them. But it starts with asking the question and patiently waiting for the answer. Acknowledge the challenges affecting day-to-day work. So as an empathetic leader, you have to acknowledge that what they're doing now is tough, that this is extra difficult duty. Unions and districts can collaborate and explore scenarios that are both budget conscious and responsive to teachers and students' needs. So this is, again, involving everybody, the district, the unions, the PTA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Involve everyone. And I got one point here that I put in red, in bold. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So when you do all of this, when you do what was on the previous couple slides, you need to have an accountability system where you're measuring what you're setting out to do. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Because then says, well, how is the communication going? Oh, I think communication is going much better. Well, tell me what, how many more parents did you connect with? How many more emails did you send out to your community? How much more did you post on your website about issues that you're dealing with? Those are measurable things that you can manage, and you can hold yourself accountable and you can hold everyone else accountable if you can measure it. Okay. Some resources for you. The slides, of course, are available to you through the Lumos site and where you signed on. And if there's anything else that we can do, either me or any of the other team at Lumos, don't hesitate to call us, email us, ask us. So we feel we're a part of this process and a part of the solution, and we'd like to provide you with resources that are helpful. That's what I've got to say. I'd love to, in the 5 minutes that we have left, I would love to ask some of the participants to share their thoughts on some of these issues or to raise questions or to shriek with horror at any of my suggestions. Anyone want to unmute their mic and share with the group? No one? Carla, Cliff, Lynn?
All your mics are unmuted now. I hope it's open.
Oh, that'll help.